My name is Alyssa, and I'm 21. This happened when I was 19, though. I met up with this guy I met on Tinder named Charlie. He seemed as nice as anybody would over some text messages and a few phone calls. It was stupid of me to not ask to FaceTime him, so I could make sure I wasn't being catfish or whatever. You can roast me all you want for that in the comments. I had never had anything like this happen to me before, nor have I been catfished like this. So I didn't think it was that common of a thing. Charlie asked if I wanted to come over on a Friday night after he got out of work. We had been talking for a few days, so I wasn't opposed. The only thing was, I wasn't looking for a hookup. I'm sure some of you girls here know exactly how that works. It can be hard to tell when a guy has ulterior motives. Realistically, if we're being honest, 90% of men just want to sleep with you. Even if they are nice and good guys, you have to be realistic. That's just how it works in our day and age, and I understand that completely, but I was hoping for someone that wouldn't mind to get to know me at first. And maybe if things progressed, we could start talking about that, or even starting a relationship. But I wasn't necessarily looking for that either. Basically, I just hoped he wasn't a creep, and that we could have some fun. The pictures of him on Tinder were about as Tinder gets. American country looking guy with pictures of him fishing. Not that it matters that much, but we both bonded over God, and it made me a lot more comfortable knowing that we could relate on that. But now I know he was just using that as an excuse for me to let my guard down. He had to be. It was about a 20-minute drive for me, which was fine. I get there around 10:30. He lived in a quiet subdivision. It looked pretty new, as there weren't many houses on either of the streets that looked lived in. I parked on the side of the road and I glanced once more at the house. The porch light was on, and that was it. None of my family or friends knew where I was at the time, and I decided to text my sister real quick that I was on a Tinder date, and I also sent her the address, just in case anything went wrong. I swallowed the anxiety I was feeling as I walked up to the front porch. I sent him a quick message that I was there, and as I was pulling up, it was read. I knocked on the door and waited a second, but nobody answered. I knocked again and waited. Yet, again, no answer. I had a real bad feeling now, so I went back to my car, thinking I must have had the wrong house. Suddenly, I received a Tinder message from Charlie. He said that I was silly for knocking on the wrong door and that he can see me just 2 houses over. The address he sent me led to the wrong house. You know how Google Maps can be sometimes a bit finicky. I checked the house address I was at, and it was in fact a different number than the one he sent. I walked over to the house that he said he was at, with the green Pontiac Pre in the car. I noticed the front porch light was on, as well as the living room light. About 70% of the way there, now the inside light turned off. I stopped at the end of the driveway just thinking for a second and taking in my surroundings. If something were to go horribly wrong, there weren't many options of getting help. Suddenly, before anything else could happen, I received another message on Tinder from Charlie. He asked, "Are you coming?" with a laughing emoji. I thought that was weird, like definitely not normal, but I kept walking straight, and finally, I noticed the front door was open. The glass door was closed though, and it was way too dark to see inside. Right when I was feeling like turning around, there was one last message from him. It said that the door was unlocked. At that moment, I just knew something was wrong, so I started walking back to my car. Just as I was opening my car door, there was a girl's voice, probably around my age, coming from behind me in the house. I looked back and the door was open and she was sticking out. She asked if I was coming in. She also had a seltzer in her hand. I looked at her and I told her I was good, and I just drove away after that. Charlie originally told me that he was the only one home, and red flags were ringing in my head non-stop, so I decided enough was enough. I up and left, and on my way home I opened Tinder and saw that Charlie blocked me. No explanation, absolutely nothing. To me, that gave me all I needed to know. In my eyes, that showed me something was definitely wrong and that I wasn't overthinking anything. Don't you think a normal person would just come out and greet you? Maybe he wasn't a catfish, but all my friends around the town said they had never seen him before. I feel like there was something sinister going on behind the surface. Regardless if I was overthinking or not, if red flags are there and I have a bad feeling, it's not really worth the risk. A few days later, I got a text message asking if I wanted to try hanging out again from Charlie, and he said that he was sorry about the last time. Absolutely not. My friend Angela said that I should search his phone number up and see what information I can get, and this is what we found. It said the owner of the phone was 28, and that his name was Jose. That's really sketchy and makes me think I was 100% being catfished. That explains why he couldn't greet me at the door. I don't know what those people had in store for me, but at least I didn't have to find out the hard way. Maybe my mind wouldn't go down the shitter if he didn't have a girl try to lure me in with alcohol. That was the icing on the cake for me. I never thought I would be the type of girl to meet up with a guy I met on Tinder, but there I was, outside this sketchy looking house, feeling a mix of excitement but also nervous. His pictures made him look super handsome, and we had been texting for a couple of weeks, so I felt like I kind of knew him enough already. When I arrived, I noticed there was a party going on. I wasn't really supposed to be on Tinder at 16 years old, but I lied about my age. All of my friends were also on there, so I thought I would be fine. When I stepped inside, though, my excitement quickly turned to unease. Someone asked who I was, and I told him my name was Kayla. That's when Jared, the guy I was talking to, approached me with 2 beers and said hello. He then insisted that I drink one. Jared looked much different and older in person than he did in the photos, and that immediately had me questioning a lot. I declined the beer. At the party, they were mostly older men. I would say the average age was 24. I suddenly felt like I had made a huge mistake, and they were all playing beer pong and acting crazy. Absolutely nothing like I expected when I walked in. I tried to leave, but then Jared and some of his friends pressured me into staying longer. I didn't know what to do, and I was starting to feel really scared. Then I noticed another girl around my age who looked just as uncomfortable as I was. It was like we both knew we were in a dangerous situation, and she looked like she had been through some shit. I made my way over to talk to her, and she was saying how she wanted to leave the second she got here, and that she thought she was only coming here to meet a guy. We both thought we were coming here to meet Jared, and he wasn't paying any attention to us, which was probably a good thing. We tried to quietly slip out at one point, but we were waiting for the right moment to go without being noticed. We didn't know each other, but we stuck together, hoping that there was strength in numbers. And that's when things took a really dark turn. 2 of the older men started acting really aggressive and tried physically taking us to the bedroom and making us drink. It became clear that we were both in danger, and the only option was to make a run for it. Luckily, Jared made the guys leave us alone. At one point, the guys who were giving us the most trouble walked outside the back door for whatever reason, and we took that as a sign to run. We managed to escape and call the police. We were both victims of a setup and a twisted trap. We both ran to my car as fast as we could, seeking refuge in a nearby parking lot about 2 miles away, where we hugged each other and thanked God for letting us get out of that house unharmed. They knew we were minors after we got there, and they didn't give a shit. They also saw how uncomfortable we were and that we wanted to leave, and they didn't care about that either. I shudder to think about what could have happened if the other girl and I hadn't trusted our instincts and looked out for each other. Meeting a stranger from Tinder was the biggest mistake of my life, and I'll never take that kind of risk again. It was a wake-up call about the dangers that can come with online dating, and I'm so grateful that we both made it out of that house. I started using Tinder for the first time a few months ago, and here's my first and last experience that I will ever have for meeting up with anyone from an online site ever again. I'm 24 and definitely average. I'm not the best looking by any means, and I'm not super fit. I'm also a bit nerdy. The only thing I really have going for me is that I make decent money. Enough to take care of myself and a future girl. to be able to pay all the bills. I've only had one serious relationship, and at my age, it's embarrassing for me to still be single. There's a lot of pressure from my friends and family in saying that I need to get out more and live my life. Sorry for the TMI, but I'm still a virgin as well. My friends practically crucify me for that every time we hang out. They really mean it in good fun, but I never understood why it mattered that much. I matched with a girl named Isabella, and we talked for weeks over the phone and on Snapchat before ever meeting up. Well, I eventually asked her if she would like to hang out, and though she seemed hesitant at first, she said she was down. She sent me the address later that night, and I got there just before 9 o'clock. Admittedly, I was slightly nervous before the meetup. It was my first time meeting with a girl from Tinder, and I just hoped it would go well. I picked her up and took us out to eat, and I paid for the bill. It was really awkward at first, but after we started to get to know each other more, and after a couple of drinks, we both started to open up and have some fun. I asked her if she wanted to do anything else that night, and she seemed interested, but she had a long day, and she said that she had to wake up early the next day. She told me she wants to hang out again in a few days, and suggested that we do so at my place. She also suggested that we have a few drinks, and that she will make dinner and we can watch some movies. That sounded perfect to me. So I dropped her off that night, and about 4 days later she came over. We both had the next day off of work, so it was going to be perfect for us. This time she insisted on driving herself over instead of me picking her up. It was around 7 o'clock when she came over. We got started with making dinner not too long after she came over. We also started with our drinks fairly early. I had a few beers at first, but she seemed to be getting a lot more buzzed than I was, so she wanted me to drink her liquor. I took a few shots of her stuff, and within the next 10 minutes, I remembered feeling way too messed up. It seemed way too sudden, as I was usually pretty good with my alcohol. I started to feel really dizzy and weird. I couldn't even hold a basic conversation after a few minutes. The last thing I remember was Isabella laughing at me for some reason. After that, I blacked out and fell asleep for like 4 hours. I woke up on the couch with a massive headache and heavy breathing. I was discombobulated, and I got up to look for Isabella. The house was an absolute disaster, and the front door was wide open. I started looking around the house for her, and all I noticed was that things were thrown all over the floor, and my place was a huge mess. Both of my TVs were gone, my handgun, and a bunch of my money was missing. Even some of my expensive clothing. In total, her and whoever she probably had with her took over $4,000 worth of merchandise. I felt like such an idiot that I let this happen. I tried to message her on Tinder, but I was blocked. I tried texting her and calling her on my phone, but I was also blocked there. The realization of what just happened to me hit like a truck, and I was so pissed off and feeling hopeless. I made a report to the police, but surely Isabella probably gave me a fake name, because we couldn't find her on social media, or her last name, if that was even her in the first place. The only thing we had to go off of was what she looked like and where she supposedly lived. When the police knocked on her door, they were greeted with some younger guy that said Isabella didn't live there. So really, they couldn't do anything without a warrant, and that was the end of that. I've been kicking myself ever since and vowed to never touch a dating app ever again.